wherever you are in the world today. Thank you for joining us on Association Rockstars. I'm Amy Hager, your host. Lowell is out and about, and so I am going to be interviewing a lovely panel of IOMs. And if you're not for sure what IOM stands for, we will definitely dive into that and explain it. And to get started out with today's interview, I want to give our panelists a chance to introduce themselves. And that way I can also double check and make sure that we're live on the Facebook group. So Kuma, why don't you go ahead, go first. Who are you? What are you doing in this world?
Sure. Well, my name is Kuma Roberts. I'm the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for a boutique consulting firm called Arrowhead Consulting in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But formerly, 10 years tour of duty with the Tulsa Regional Chamber, where I did a variety of roles, including education, workforce development, talent attraction, and then left there as the VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So really excited to be with you here today, Amy.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. And Robert, how about you? Where are you located and what are you up to?
Hi, my name is Robert Newman. I'm the Vice President and Chief Financial Officer at the Independent Film and Television Alliance. We're a 501c6 trade association based here in Los Angeles. And I'm coming up to 32 years at the organization.
Wow. So you started in kindergarten?
Well, I was 12 years old.
I love it. I love it. Well, if you're listening live today on Facebook, feel free to drop any questions that you have for our panelists in the comments. And if you are catching this on replay, still drop your questions. We'll be back, I promise. And to kick our session off today, I would love to hear what your superpowers are. And Robert, do you want to go ahead and go first and share with us?
Sure. Well, I had to give that a lot of thought. I mean, there are a lot of superpowers that I would like and I think would be very helpful. But I guess just thinking about it, I guess my superpower is getting the job done, meeting deadlines, getting the job done, doing whatever it takes to get the project completed. It may be a little bit rocky along the way, but I finally get there. And since 1999, when I took over the finance and accounting department at my organization, I've never missed a filing deadline for our 990.
Nice.
I've always been prepared for our annual audit, and the auditors have always been very impressed, and we've always had a clean audit. So I think that would be my superpower.
I love it. Kuma, how about you?
Robert speaking French, all things finance. I'm just like, what is this he's talking about? I would have to say that my superpower is diplomacy. I feel like I really honed my superpower while working in the chamber world, and chambers and associations get this, right? Because we have hard conversations with our members. And somehow you have to deliver sometimes not so great news to them in a way that is kind of a win-win for all. And so certainly that has its role to play in the work I'm currently doing: leadership development, diversity, equity, and inclusion training. So diplomacy is my superpower.
I feel like in this industry, diplomacy needs to be like in everybody's like back pocket at all times. Definitely needs.
Well, we all know that's not the case, right? Not everybody's got it, and so that's why I'm claiming it as my own. Hi, Dewan.
Exactly. Dewan, thank you so much for joining us. And I think like that is the thing about the industry is sometimes meetings come up and you have to be a little bit late, or there's a time zone difference, and we didn't realize it in the email when I communicated to you.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're able to join us. Let's go ahead and get you caught up. Go ahead, introduce yourself. Who are you? What organization do you work for? And what are you doing in this world?
Yes, and first off, thank you, Amy, and your terrific team for having me. Greatly appreciate it. But for those that don't know me, my name is Dewan Clayborn, and I am the president and CEO of the League City Regional Chamber of Commerce. We are the fastest growing chamber in Galveston County, located in League City, the largest city in Galveston County. I've been a president and CEO here for 2 years, and it's been a complete 180. It's been a blessing, but I'm operating in my superhero power, which is serving. And so working at the chamber, all I'm doing is really serving the community, serving the businesses, very involved in my church. I'm an usher and a greeter. And so, that's service as well, because, you want to greet people in, put a smile on their face by you smiling. And so just operating in my spiritual gift.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And you know what? Let's roll right into how did you get started in the industry? Was it just a calling that you had through service and being so connected in your community?
Just great question. So my friends, they have a funny story that they say about me. So I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. Played basketball in college, Division I. Not really that tall, but hey, I still played. And so I relocated to Houston. And so my first job in Houston, I was actually a server at Papados, where I learned so much about customer service and things of that nature. Then I spent a couple of years in retail. And then just one day, I was working with Target actually. And I don't know if you all remember, Target went through this big breach, credit card breach, a few decades
Yeah.
ago. Yeah, a few years ago. And so what they did is they downsized. And so I had just bought my first house. And so it's just like the saying, last one in, first one out. So I got let go. So I'm like, man, God, like, what am I doing wrong? And my aunt, she was in Europe at the time. She got a random email and it said Fort Bend Chambers looking for a director of special events. She was like, huh, why did they send this to me? I'm in Europe. She was like, oh, Dewan needs a job. And so I went to Fort Bend Chamber. I interviewed at 11 a.m. and she offered me by 2 p.m. the same day. That has never happened in my life.
Wow.
Never. Same day. And so, sorry about that. Someone's calling.
Okay.
They offered me the same day. And yeah, that was the start of my chamber career. I was there 3.5 years. I was blessed to do some terrific things. That chamber is like top 10 best chambers in the world. So I got like grade A experience, which I didn't realize at the time I was getting. And then I was actually able to graduate with my Institute of Management certification through the United States Chamber of Commerce Foundation, which you all know about. And so once I finished that, I was like, I think it's time for me to go ahead and run my own chamber. And so that's how I got to League City.
Love it. That's some ambition, definitely. And I think too, like the fact that your aunt forwarded that to you and she wasn't
Right.
even local, like that is definitely the stars aligning and like
Yes.
just you're meant to be here. How cool is that?
It's really cool. And it's really just a testimonial to people. Like I said, first job I was a server at Papados. And so no matter where you are, just know that, people are looking, never burn those bridges, keep a great attitude and try to learn something that no matter what company you're at, because you never know when you're going to use it. I mean, I use a lot of my customer service things that I learned at Papados today with members, especially the ones that are kind of tough to deal with. You got to kill them with kindness, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, Robert, how about what's your story? How did you get started?
I think the ongoing joke is no one chooses to be an association or chamber professional. Everybody just ends up there.
Right.
I was actually in LA in 1990, just hanging out, traveling a little bit, and I applied for a job to work the 1991 American Film Market, which is our annual trade show. It was supposed to be a 6-month assignment, working in accounts receivable. So I thought, oh, you know what? I've got nothing better to do. And I applied for the job. I got the job. 32 years later, I'm still at that organization.
Wow. So then how many different roles have you had?
It's all been in finance and accounting. So I worked my way up from an accounts receivable, a temporary seasonal position. Then I got hired as a senior accountant and worked my way up to vice president and CFO.
That's absolutely amazing. And I want to ask you a follow-up question really quick, if you don't mind, and then Kuma, we'll go on to your story.
Sure.
So, Robert, from being at the very beginning to there, what though were you doing before you took this seasonal job? Was it fresh out of college type thing, or?
Not quite. I was born in Teaneck, New Jersey, but at the age of 6, my family moved to Melbourne, Australia, where I grew up and went to school and went to college. And after graduating from college, I got a job at a CPA firm. I worked there for a couple of years before the travel itch kind of took over, and I decided to having been born in America, I wanted to come back and travel and visit, and ended up staying here.
Very cool. Wow. Well, I'm glad you stayed, and I'm glad
Thank
we
you.
found you. Kuma, how about you? How did you get started?
Well, I have to echo what Robert said. Like, no one like wakes up and chooses to do this, but I wanted a job. I don't have a college degree. I didn't graduate from college. I have some college, but never actually finished. And so I'd been working as a receptionist in different companies locally, and there was an opportunity that came up in the local CVB, which was under the chamber, and it was for an account specialist. And I thought, I'm moving up in my career. I want to be an account specialist. No longer am I interested in being this receptionist role. I want to take the next step up. And so I applied for this job that I didn't get ultimately. But what they heard in my interview was, I love Tulsa. I love my city. I love helping people. I really am excited to be here for the opportunity. And they ultimately called me back. And some of you, if you're in the chamber world, I know we're talking Chambers Association, knows Ruth Littlefield. She hired me at the Tulsa Regional Chamber being an account specialist. And it was really sort of investor relations work, like creating the spreadsheets to create a program for them to call on our members and sort of thank them for their investment in our chamber. But it just was an amazing intro. And to this whole organization, I had no idea existed, right? Who knows that there are roles, multiple roles within something like an association or a chamber. So it just opened up a whole new world for me about where I could go and how I could grow, given that maybe I don't have what is traditionally, right, the sort of pedigree of a college degree. So it was a fabulous intro for me.
Well, and you did eventually go on to get your IOM and go
Yes.
through institute and everything.
Yeah, I
And
think we actually met a few times getting our IRM, right? Yes, I remember.
Yes, Dewan, how could you forget?
No, I apologize. I'm putting two and two together. Look, I apologize.
I was like, we have partied before
Yeah, we
together.
have.
Okay.
And you actually gave me some really good ideas to thought leadership from the C-suite. I'm actually doing that now. Yes, I remember.
Okay.
I love it. I love it. Well, and I think too, the great thing about Association Rockstars is we're able to really bring people into this community where like sometimes we're like ships passing in the night and we know each other and we know we've interacted with each other and like just like you're remembering like, oh my gosh, you gave me this great idea. And that's what I love about the IOM community too, is it's like you meet all of these wonderful people at Institute and sometimes you graduate together. You do all 4 years together, right? And sometimes there's those people who fast track and pop in and out or whatever happens and they change locations. But like once you've gone to Institute and once you've gone through the IOM program, it's just expanding your network globally, right? And so I love that. And so I think Kuma, the question that I want to ask you is you did stumble upon in this industry and you've kind of moved around a little bit chamber wise and into now a consulting role. Why do you continue to work in this industry? What sucked you in?
You know, there was the idea that every single day was incredibly different. That's powerful, right? I could be on a DC fly-in or traveling with our legislators to our state capitol to sort of lobby and advocate for our members. I could be at an event, like putting down programs around a table. I could be, hosting a board meeting where we're discussing some of the challenges of the day. I felt like the industry itself places you in a position to make impact and influence on a community. And I think that is like a very powerful feeling to know that I know almost every single person of influence in my community and have a relationship with them. And I credit my experience with the chamber as being a part of that. I mean, I have my phone ringing when a CEO of a Fortune 500 company that's headquartered here says, Kuma, I got to ask you a question. I'm like, really? Me? Why me? It's just really awesome. And I think that's what Chambers and Association does, is that you have this membership and this connection, this broad network of individuals that really in a variety of ways just strengthen relationship, connection. You never know what you're going to know. And it's really sustained me for the past 10 or 11 years. And I don't want to leave it because it's been a wonderful family to be a part of.
I love that. I absolutely love that. It is. It's a big family, like that extended family. And I think the really cool thing too that you were kind of hitting on before we went live, like you're working with different organizations in different states and getting to travel and getting to see. And you were even talking about maybe a bigger trip coming up.
Yeah.
And it's like you always know someone almost everywhere you go.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I was worried. I frightened half to death. It was the middle of a pandemic, right? I could leave my job I've had for 10 years. What does consulting look like? And the minute I left the chamber, I had fear for like a minute. My chamber and association friends have all called in some way. Kuma, can you come present for us on diversity? Hey, Kuma, can you consult with us? And so a large majority of my clients are chambers that I knew through the IOM process and through my work doing ACCE and other opportunities. So powerful connections that are fueling my life now, right? That I couldn't do without, that made it possible for me to kind of break out on my own. So that's been wonderful, a wonderful surprise.
I love that. I absolutely love it. Dewan, what about you? What do you love the most about the work that you're doing as a chamber CEO?
I believe just, being able to have influence and affect the mom and pop business owners, right? So, and don't get me wrong, of course, I love my 5-star members. I call them 5-star. It's my top tier, donors. However, allowing to work with the mom and pop business owners that because of the chamber, they're able to feed their kids. Because of their chamber, they're able to grow their staff. Because of their chamber, they're able to grow their network and not just have one location, but grow to 2 and 3. So just those testimonials and just knowing that I'm able to help by making a phone call or setting up a meeting for them with someone who they've been trying to meet with for months, but they keep running to the gatekeeper, but I'm able to pick up the phone and make it happen. So one of my slogans is, I tell people is, I don't have problems. I have friends, so anytime there's a problem, if I can't answer, hey, guess what? I can hop on the phone and call somebody to get an answer or to get things done. So similar to what Kuma is saying, it's really just great to have that influence. And, I still got a lot more years of my chamber career. However, being blessed to see how I was able to turn my current chamber around, I think it would be good to eventually start working with chambers that, don't have good financial solvency and, help implement and have a turnaround strategy, because at the end of the day, we see now chambers are more important than ever. You can't have a strong, robust community without a vibrant business community. And that starts with your chamber of commerce.
Yeah, most definitely. And I love that. I'm trying to retype the saying that you just said. I don't have problems. I have friends.
Yes.
That is awesome. That's so true. So true. Robert, I want to ask you maybe a little bit more personal question, and knowing that you've been in this industry longer than the three of us, has there ever been a professional or personal challenge that you've really had to overcome while working at your association that you want to share with our audience that we can maybe gain some insight from?
Oh, now we're getting really personal here. Having worked at my association for almost 32 years, actually, at the end of this month, there's definitely been challenges along the way, both professional and personal. And I think over the years I've grown. I've learned. I've made many mistakes, and I've tried to learn from my mistakes as I've progressed. I think there's just trying to think back at specific challenges. I thought of a couple just more so on the workload kind of challenge that I had. In 2004, we decided to move our trade show from February time slot to November. And so that was a pretty big move, doing what was an annual trade show, having to do it twice in 1 year was huge. And not only that, we also changed our fiscal year from a June 30th year end to a calendar year end. So that meant just so much. I mean, it was a huge undertaking, and we had to, change processes. We had to do two year end closes. We had to do a short 6-month financial period. And so there was a lot of things that I had done it was the first time I did it. And I, basically had to learn as I go. But it was, again, we managed, we made it through, and it was a great learning experience. So I think just my advice is, when those kind of challenges come along, just, don't fear them, just embrace it, and you will come out better on the other side.
I get that. And I think too, like, you'll get through it together is kind of what it sounds like with your entire team. I mean, those are some big shifts to be making all together, let alone in 1 year, right?
Yes.
And so I think you're right, Robert. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes we don't see it and we just get so burdened and overwhelmed by it all, but we'll get through it together. And I think that's a beautiful thing about the chamber and association space is, like Dewan said, we show up in service. And by showing up in service, I think we're able to really tackle some really huge changes, problems because of that. So I love that. I love that was your piece of advice.
And part of what, just to jump in on that, we show up for service, but you can't neglect the fact that we work with some of the most intelligent individuals in our community, right? And that right there is, invaluable. For instance, I tell my board this every time. I say, hey, when you hire people, people are intimidated about hiring people that's smarter than them. I say, hey, y'all are on my board because all of you all are smarter than me, but that allows me to keep my job, right? So I intentionally want, the smartest, the most influential. I want all C-suites, and so I think you can't forget about that fact that you get to work day in and day out with these stellar leaders.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I was going to say, I love that we have all this positivity around the work, and it definitely exists. But I think, some challenges for me are there's this tendency for chambers and certainly probably associations to not have hard conversations because we're a chamber. We're so, like, everything should be rosy from our perspective. And so sometimes that results in people feeling excluded, or that we're not considering the reality of the current situation that we're living in across the nation. People are heavily and deeply divided. And so I see the chambers and certainly our associations as places where some hard conversations can be had. And so, I would encourage most of you all to dig deeply into that side as well, right? It's fantastic to say all of the benefit, and they exist and it's there, but there's some incredible disparity across the communities we serve, who's represented within our organizations, why aren't others more represented within, and so there's just some questions we need to start asking ourselves as well that will take us into the future, right? In terms of our relevance and sustainability.
Yeah, and she's absolutely right about that. And so when I was rebuilding my board, that's what I looked at. How diversified are we? Not just from age, ethnicity, from industry, right? From talent, time, service. And so I'm proud to say now we probably have one of the most diverse boards my chamber's ever seen. That's half the reason why we've been able to do such great things. So yeah, definitely right on that.
So then I guess my next question for you guys are, as we're thinking about having diverse boards, having the ones who are, I guess, to say it blatantly, smarter than we are, right? Who are able to come together and kind of find the right solutions and ask the hard questions. When you're thinking about collaborating and bringing those people together, what is a quality that you want to look for in a person, as you sitting here as the association or chamber director, who's, all right, I want to recruit, I want to bring that person on? What's some of the qualities that you think we should be looking for as we're gathering and bringing those people together in the room?
Well, I think number one is always integrity, right? You want to keep everything transparent and above board. My next thing is enthusiasm. I want people that are happy to be here. I made up a word. It's called Blappy, Blappy. And that means that even though you're not happy, you can act happy, you know. So I tell people, hey, act blappy, you know, because every day we're not happy, but you can act like free. So mine is integrity, enthusiasm, and like bring the energy. We don't need any Debbie Downs, and if they got those three things, they're fine.
I love that. Robert, Kuma, any other ones, any other qualities to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Kuma mentioned earlier about diplomacy, and to follow on what Dewan said about integrity. You want honesty. You want people that know they're there not for their own self-interest, but to help the broader community at large, whether
Yeah.
it's the industry or your local community at a chamber. You're there as a board member, not to do what's best for you and your company, but you're there to do what's best for the association and for the chamber and for the communities at large.
Yeah. I mean, these guys said it best, but authentic, genuine leaders who are vulnerable, right? And say I don't know, and are curious to think more deeply about challenges and solutions. Sometimes this work can just pose itself to the dinners and the the exciting things that come around with like pulling people together and convening individuals. But I'm always looking for that person who's willing to really roll up their sleeves and say, how can we be better? How can we tell the true picture and the true reality of the organization, because it's in my heart to see it, go beyond whatever the current realities are. And I think that is sometimes so hard to find, is someone willing to kind of pull down this like facade of, oh, I'm a CEO or I'm a this, and saying, no, I'm really about the greater good. I think Dewan said that, like that outcome of for the community, right? The final result. So.
I love that. I love it. And so as we think about the next question that I want to move on to, which is what community kind of connects all of us, which is the Institute of Organizational Management, having our IOM and going through that process and being able, one, to have the support of others. We're not doing this alone. There's others who are having the same hard conversations and building the same community and collaboration within their spaces. I'm curious as to why is having your IOM important to each of you? And I'm sure you each have different answers. And so, Robert, let's start with you first. Why is it important to have your IOM? And you also have sat on a board of regents as well. So I think you might have a different perspective, even just as someone who has their IOM too.
Yeah, you know what? A number of years ago, I was on the board of CalSAE, the California Society of Association Executives, and I was in line to become the board chair. And I never got my CPA, but having worked at an association for so long, I decided, you know what? It's time to get my CAE. And my goal was to get it before I became the board chair. So I set the exam in May and became board, and luckily I somehow miraculously got through it and became the board chair in July after that. And so it was kind of a rushed process, 3-4 months of intensive study and, nights and weekends of reading through all these, 4-inch thick association law handbooks. So I felt that it was a little bit more rushed than what I wanted it to be. And I had spoken to some other CalSAE members who had sat for and undertook the IOM. And I thought, that sounds really interesting. That sounds interesting. So I looked into it and I decided, you know what, I'm going to pursue this because just the whole program sounded really fascinating. And it was more of a slow, it wasn't an intense 3 months. It was, spread over 4 years. And just doing that was such a great experience. I got to meet, like you had mentioned earlier, I got to meet fabulous chamber people from all over the country who I'd hoped to go visit in the last year or two, but that didn't happen. But eventually it will. And it was such a great program. I really enjoyed it. I learned, it helped me fill in some of the gaps that I didn't quite, learn during my cramming session for the CAE. Yeah. And not only that, though, it, more importantly, it just gave me this new network of both professional and personal friends. And it was such a good experience. I was asked, and I would happily agree to serve on the Board of Regents for a couple of years at West Institute. And so definitely recommend it for anyone.
Kuma, how about you?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, like, I did go to college, University of Tulsa for 3 years. My father passed away. I dropped out, so I didn't finish and get my degree. And so, work and life and kids and all of that gets into play. And for me, the IOM was this feeling of I'm finishing something. I often refer to it as chamber and association college, right? It feels, you go for this very rigorous, intense, 4-year program, and I spaced it out over 4 years. That was, I just felt like I learned about governance. I learned about budgets. I learned about board relationship. I learned about trends in the industry. I just felt like I got every single piece that I leverage to this very day, or in my work as a consultant, that has nothing to do necessarily with the chamber, but that intimate knowledge that I have has been what's been sort of at the core of how I do my current work. And so the ION means significantly a lot to me. It says I've accomplished something. It says that I've accomplished something that's big, that's recognized, and that I have people with me that also have that name, and it's that bond and that camaraderie that we all went through the same thing. And so I know that I went through at West with Robert and Dewan, that we are we're a breed. We were well taught. We are in the industry. We're the best of the best, and that's really exciting. And so I just really have a lot for that. It means a lot, and I make sure people put it in my name. I'm IOM on LinkedIn and otherwise. It's something I want people to recognize.
I love that. Dewan, how about you?
I echo everything they say, but for me, it's really like a master's in chamber world. That's what I tell people. It's a master's in chamber association world, and it really showed me how important it was. So in League City, I'm the first chamber executive, meaning all my predecessors didn't have chamber experience. So when you were asking Robert, we kind of talked about it too, hey, we're always about to rah, but when I started, there was not a great situation. I was in a tremendous deficit, and again, I was blessed to turn everything around, but it truly showed me when you have people running these chambers and they have no experience, and you just picking out, it's probably not the best term, but the average Joe, it's detrimental to the community. And, chamber wise, it really makes a difference when you take, that professional development for those 4 years. It's just night and day almost with the executives.
Yeah, I totally would agree with you. And I think when I reflect back on getting my IOM, I was a brand new association executive of an organization that never had an association executive before. It was a volunteer ran organization. Wow. And I had no idea about a 990. I didn't even know we weren't filing it. And my accountant didn't know because he was an innkeeper volunteering as the treasurer, right? And so I think learning those fundamentals of this is how you run a business, a chamber or association business, is that wonderful foundation, no matter where you are in the space, that you're able to do. But also I had a chance and a moment to reflect how I got started in the industry is I was a member of 4 chambers and 3 associations because I worked for a publishing company. And when we moved to DC, I was yes, the mecca of associations, I'm going into it. And then stumbled on the IOM, and I was great, I'm not getting a master's, I'm not going back to college, I'm getting my IOM. And that replaced any other institutional organization that I needed to go back to school for. And little did I know that I was going into this huge, like you said, camaraderie family, that you have all of these great people to bounce ideas off of, to help you build your tiered memberships. And like Robert, I've gone back and served. I was a classroom advisor. I've been on the board of regents. I'm now a faculty at West. or wait, Tucson. There's no more West.
I'm aware.
All right,
Winter.
Don't make me cry.
Oh, I know. It's such a...
I know.
West is best. No, just kidding.
the yacht parties.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And so it's such a beautiful thing to like get to experience, and how each of us, came across it, but each of us value it so differently. And so I guess I want to ask one last question. And if you each want to answer, great. If we only get one answer, that's fine. But why do you think having more people go through Institute, more IOM graduates, why do you think this is important for our industry?
Well, I'll start it off just to echo exactly what I said. There's a difference of night and day with chamber executives and non-executives, right? If you're not in the chamber industry, which a lot of us never started, we didn't start out in the chamber industry, you get those tools. Because again, for those major cities, any city really, the value and how productive and profitable the business community is going to be, from business retention to business recruitment, all that starts with the chamber. Yes, cities have EDCs, economic development, but it all starts with the chamber. And so in order to have a vibrant city, where people want their taxes lower, well, guess what? That needs more commercial development, more businesses will lower their residential taxes. It starts with the chamber.
That makes sense.
I'll just say that, it's not often that you get learning and on-the-job experience that you can apply like within a week, right? So you go to IOM, your week one, and you've learned so much that literally you leave that week and you are applying what you learned almost immediately into the work. And so in my mind, if we could shift, general higher ed, post-secondary education to a point where people had that relevance of applying what they were learning in the moment on the job or in some capacity, then we're all much better leaders, much better followers, right? And so there's something to the fact that it was immediately applied that was just so exciting. Like, I've got this new idea, this new learning. I'm gonna employ that next week, and then I'm gonna make sure that I take the lessons from the people that said, well, this is what failed, and I'm gonna apply it so that it works. And I can't tell you how many programs, how many things I developed as a result of just hearing it and then being able to actually apply it in practice in the work that I do. So that was, everyone could use that. That's why the world needs more IOMs.
Yeah. Robert, anything else to add?
No, I mean, I think it's kind of it's almost like an apprenticeship, if you're a plumber or electrician, and you may go to trade school, but then you're learning so much on the job, and that's what the IOM does. And I think Kuma explained it very, very nicely, that, it's stuff that you can apply right away, and which makes all the difference, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. You're sitting there in class and you're like, oh, I can actually apply this while I'm in class.
Yep.
Well, I want to wrap up our conversation, and I'm so excited to hear the answer to this question from all of you. And Robert, since you were just speaking, I'll just start out with you. What legacy do you want to leave behind in this world?
I thought about that, and I guess it's more on a personal level. Unlike Oscar the Grouch from Sesame Street, I hate trash. I hate litter. And every time I drive around the streets of LA and see litter everywhere, it just bugs me. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I started organizing community cleanups. And I do a twice monthly cleanup along this one stretch of road. I decided I'm going to adopt this stretch of road, and I'm going to make sure it stays clean. It's up in the Santa Monica mountain area. And it's a stretch of road that I used to drive through every day on the way to and from work when I was working at the office. So I've been doing that twice a month, first Saturday, third Sunday of every month, and I try to recruit volunteers. I've also been doing another community cleanup through a community Facebook group, and it's been great. I've been doing that once a month, getting 20 to 25 people, a lot of young kids who are so excited about picking up litter. And most recently, I've teamed up with an organization, a nonprofit organization based here in LA called Volunteers Cleaning Communities. And it's just something that I feel very strongly about. And I decided, you know what, I can complain about it and whine about it or do something about it. So 3 or 4 years ago, I decided to do something about it. And it's just something that I'm hoping that when people think of me, they'll think, oh, you know, Roberts, you know, he's the guy that picks up the litter on our street.
Not everybody can say that. And what I love about it is it ties to your superpower, right? Of getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
It really, really does. So way to take the initiative and go for it. And what a beautiful legacy to leave behind for your area. That is so unique. Wow. Kuma, how about you?
That's such a great question. I think about my kids. Kids today, certainly Black and brown kids, can't be what they can't see. And so I always do all of the work, my service in chamber world, my interviews, my presentations, really in my mind is about letting people see, so that they know what they could be, right? Not that they want to be me. And so, you know, I didn't graduate from college, right? I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks in Tulsa, Oklahoma, North Tulsa. There's just so many things that would count against me, but yet I have this amazing job in a building, a high-rise building in downtown, you know, Tulsa, where I'm traveling around the nation. The world is next. I want to go international soon, but I mean that's the legacy, is that my kids have something to aspire to be and do better than I did. And I think that's what we all want, is for our families, is for our children to do better. And so that's my legacy.
I love that. Dewan, how about you? Wrap it up for us.
Mine might not be as good as those two. However, I mentioned earlier that, you know, I played Division I basketball. So eventually I want to get to a point where I'm able to go back and, you know, speak to athletes and tell them, hey, you know, one, while you're in college, it's going to go by so quick. So, you know, use that sport. Don't let it use you. So, for instance, for me, I was blessed enough to have a full ride, but I still did my grades, you know, and there's a lot of athletes that get stuck in, you know, want to, you know, continue to go to the next level when there's just a small percentage that does. And so if you can, you know, utilize your free education so you won't be in debt when you get out of school, and then maybe you'll even, you know, be able to get a good job through those connections that you make while everybody is cheering you on at that sport, you know, so utilize that sport. Don't let it utilize you. So that's one of my passion things. Still, I, you know, coach kids, and, you know, I still play basketball, but really eventually getting into those college campuses and, you know, having a time to talk to them at that level and just letting them know, like, hey, take advantage of this opportunity. You know, don't go out and get all these loans because you want this fancy clothes. I have teammates now. We had a full ride, but they want to get loans out, and now they got to pay it back, you know? Yeah. But how much more do you start ahead by being debt-free from education versus those that have that debt? So that's one of the things.
I love it. Well, and I love, again, all of your answers are so personal and so different. And that's the great thing about our community, is we're all coming at this world from different places within our souls and within our hearts, with different solutions, but we're all here wanting to make this world a better place. So thank you all for joining me today and letting me dive into what's going on in your worlds. And thank you to our listeners. I know we've had a few join us live. I know some people will catch this on replay. And
I have a question for you, Amy.
Oh gosh. Yeah?
Who's hosting the next West reunion? Should we go to Robert or Dewan, or should we go to you? Where are we? Y'all come to Tulsa?
Well, and I didn't realize you all were West grads.
Yeah, I think we are, yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
I did 3 years West, and I had to fast track my last year, so I actually graduated in Tucson.
Yeah.
But I was Western years. Don't do it like that.
I got it. And I love that there's like this alliance and or allegiance maybe to like where you went and where did you graduate from.
Right.
And, but no matter what, we all love you, no matter where you graduated from.
Yeah, maybe. It's okay. We'll see.
Maybe, right.
Well, thank you, Amy. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Y'all keep up the great work.
Same to you all.
Thank you. Thank you. And until next time, everybody, Association Rock On.
Rock on.